This marriage love story is presented by marriageromance.com. The title is Possible Impossibles. The author is Pure Passion.
The community zoo was packed. Her heart hammered in her chest as she wove her way through the crowd of gawkers, young families, elderly couples, all straining to catch a glimpse of the elusive Asian panda bear. She loved the roly-poly black and white teddy bears just as much as the next person, but today, her eyes were for one male, that being the one striding towards her, tall, confident, drop-dead gorgeous. Sean. Their eyes met over the bobbing heads as he rounded the bend of the hill, coming to stand before her. Sharla didn't know what came over her, as she flung her arms around his neck, hanging on as if he were her life preserver, shrieking in total, embarrassing female excitement. After a second's hesitation, she felt Sean's arms steal around her waist, and with a sigh, nestled her chin in the crook of his shoulder. A misty rain blanketed the pavement where they stood, but the couple didn't care. Nothing else mattered but being in each other's arms. Sean eased back in the circle of her arms to tip up her chin, looking deep into her watery blue eyes. "Ah, Shar. It's so good to see you again. I had always hoped for this moment, but after the divorce..." Sharla stopped him, laying a finger against his lips. "Shh, let us not ruin the moment. It has been a long time in coming." "You sure about this meeting again, I mean?" Sean asked, concerned, leading her to a nearby bench a pair of teens had just vacated. They faced each other, the rough denim of his jeans brushing her bare legs in the khaki shorts. Sharla reached out to take his hands in hers, nodding. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. It's going to be a long road, I know that, but I feel it's worth it." They had met in high school, dated only 6 months, before they were caught up in a whirlwind romance that led to a quick engagement, married 5 weeks later. Their parents had disapproved from the start, too young, too inexperienced, too uneducated. "Finish college, then choose your life mate," they had said. And before they knew it, under the pressure of misguided, well-intentions, they began to drift apart. When he was offered a prominent job position in Chicago, tears in her eyes, Sharla encouraged him to pursue his dreams. They would keep their marriage intact, 6 hours apart somehow. And so it went for a number of years. Before they knew it, there were less telecommutes. The phone calls were far and few between, both so immersed in their careers and life about them. Arguments were given more of a permission with their lack of communication, apathy set in, their sex life struggled, and eventually, even when they did meet up, nights were often spent in separate rooms, he collapsing on the couch to a sports rerun, she alone with a book in their 4-poster bed. By that following Christmas, they realized they were better off apart and mutually signed the papers of divorcement. But now they were approaching Easter, 2 years later, with hope in their hearts. Unbeknownst to each other, they had attended a Life After Divorce conference in their hometown. Seated just 3 rows apart, they had heard the laugh of the other, during a humorous seminar regarding survival of the fittest, referencing men living on Mars, women on Venus, and felt both shocked and humbled at the chance meeting. During the intermission break, over Dixie cups of cherry Kool-Aid, they attempted the shaky grounds of friendship. 2 years was a lot to catch up on, and before they knew it, time had slipped away and they were summoned back to the meeting room. After that day, texting grew to phone calls to Skype, and finally Sean approached the elephant in the room, a personal face-to-face to discuss their future. They couldn't chalk this up to happenstance, both being believers. They credited a higher power to their meeting. God had a plan, and what it was, they were tentatively hopeful in discovering. Now, Sharla turned to him, a slight breeze rustling the leaves overhead, ruffling the dark chestnut curls on his head. "So?" Sean grinned, dimples creasing his tanned face. "So?" He reached out for her hand, drawing idle circles on the back of her palm. "Let us go grab some of the zoo's famous cheese fries and talk about this." One thing we tended to do as a couple was tiptoe around uncomfortable or touchy subjects. I have vowed, moving forward, that I would not do that to my next wife. Sharla's eyes grew wide, her mouth forming a silent O. Sean chuckled. "I don't want to rush into anything. I think that God granted us this opportunity and I don't intend to take it lightly, but I also want to be upfront of my intentions. If we are able to find solid footing, come together on common ground, I would very much like to explore a future with you again. I am not asking for an answer now. I am not naive enough to think we'll go find a justice of the peace and figure things out along the way, but I would like to court you with intentions of marriage and see what God reveals to each of us." His touch was doing crazy things to her stomach. She could hardly focus on the words coming from his lips. Those lips, that mouth. Something flickered inside, recalling good times, times when they were inseparable, when he cooled and he kept his hands to himself, times canoodling in the kitchen, his breath warm on the back of her neck as she washed the dishes, times she'd meet him at the door, arriving from work, clad in a skimpy apron and nothing else, times he'd scoop her up in big, strong arms, carrying her to their bedroom, time after time she'd lose herself in his love. She flushed hotly at the memories, bringing a red stain to her cheeks. "Hey!" Sharla felt his index finger and thumb on her chin, tipping up her face to meet his. "You remembering?" It was more of a gentle statement than a question. The answer lay in her eyes, shimmering with promise and possibilities. Sharla laid her hand on his, cupping her cheek, drowning in the deep blue abyss of his mesmerizing eyes. She nodded, both embarrassed to be caught taking a trip down memory lane, yet strangely relieved to lay her heart open, raw and vulnerable. "I want more than anything to get back to where we were, Sean," she confided quietly. "But there's a part of me that's so scared of the unknown, so many things that could go wrong." Sean cut her off with a gentle brush of his lips against hers. She felt herself leaning into his familiar embrace, becoming lost in the seductive scent wafting from the column of his strong, sun-tanned neck. His kiss at first was tentative, exploring, hopeful. As she melted into his embrace, her head naturally fitting into her favorite curve of chest and shoulder, surrendering on his soft sigh, his kiss grew more urgent, more demanding, giving and taking in sweet ecstasy. "I want to sit here," a sharp, toddler-sized voice broke into their intimate bubble. Sean and Sharla reluctantly parted, glancing sheepishly at each other, before directing their attention to the pint-sized interruption that had joined them. A mop of red gold curls framing an adorable round face, unblinking green eyes, bright popsicle red lips that swiped over the icy confection and chubby, toddler hands. As if in emphasis, overall hips nudged Sharla's knee again. Move. Sean's smile dissolved, assuming what Sharla guessed to be a parent-teacher stance. He drew a protective arm about her shoulders, speaking in low, firm tones. "Hey sport, how about we try addressing this lovely lady in a respectful question, rather than a demand?" "I have it on good authority," he said, dropping his hand, leaning in close to the popsicle-stained cheeks, "that my female companion here loves sweets. So let us be sweet," he whispered conspiratorially. Sharla watched the exchange between the two with a smile of amusement. "Want my icy?" the little guy asked, shoving the red and blue shaved ice into her hands, spilling the sticky liquid onto her fingers. Sharla laughed, tousling his soft curls, setting the frozen snack on the bench beside her. Fishing in her purse, she produced a travel-size, antibacterial wipe pouch. Slicing the foil with her teeth, she opened the damp cloth, swiping over her fingers, before reaching for his hands, cleaning them thoroughly. "That's very nice of you, young man. What a gentleman you are turning out to be," she praised, glancing at Sean as a big smile grew on the toddler's face. His back seemed to be straighter, his grin infectious as he smiled back at the two. "Jackie, there you are," a woman's worried voice reached them, before they saw the small, slim girl, who was wringing her hands as she reached their bench. She couldn't have been more than 17, Sharla guessed. A babysitter most likely. Her assumption was proved wrong as the little guy scrambled down from the bench beside Sharla to fling himself into the girl's arms. "Mommy." Sean and Sharla exchanged glances, rising to extend hands of greeting to the young woman. "You have a fine young man here, ma'am," Sean said, returning the fist bump of the toddler as he grinned back in the safety of his mother's arms. "He's very entertaining." The teenager arranged her son more comfortably on her hip, on a laugh. "That he is. A busy little guy for sure. Thank you for watching out for him, he's always trying to run off when my back is turned. Jackie keeps me hopping." Sharla again ruffled the fiery curls. "I just bet he does. You be good for mommy, you hear?" She lowered her voice for Jackie's ear only. "Remember, women like sweet things." Jackie grinned, accepting the newly cleaned icy cup from her. Sharla pressed a fresh wipe into the tired mother's hand. "You may need this later." The young mother flashed the couple a grateful smile as she resettled Jackie into the stroller. And then they were off. "You were great with them," Sean observed, as they moved towards the food court, hands linked lightly. Sharla looked up with a smile, squeezing his fingers lightly in response. "Thanks, you too. Not saying I do want a Jackie child, but maybe someday, I do like one of my own." "Yeah?" Sean paused before the food truck counter, perusing the menu, looking back at her. "Me too, I think. With the right person." Sharla placed her hands on her hips, tipping her head to one side. "Oh yeah, and who might that be?" Sean bussed her nose with his knuckle, drawing her close, playfully pretending to muss her hair, kissing the top of her head. "The woman to whom God grants me permission to love the rest of her life." He tipped up her face, looking deep into her eyes. "Hopefully you." Sharla flushed, reaching up on tiptoe to peck him on the lips. "Maybe," she replied, a mysterious smile curving her lips. "Now let us eat." Sean fished a roll of bills from his back pocket, giving her a soldierly salute. "Yes ma'am, a woman after my own heart." "The usual?" Sharla loved that they had a usual, wrapping her arm around his waist as he placed their order, then following him to a nearby bench. Together, over a huge basket of bacon and ranch cheese fries and crispy chicken fingers, the couple reminisced of former days that had drawn them closer, knitting them over the years, in ways neither of them had known, until the master designer began drawing closer the strings of the patchwork quilt of their lives, a divine orchestrated appointment. Making the impossibles possible.